Thank you. My name is Joel Grayson. It's an honor to be here. It's funny you talked about lowering the age to 16 because I am 16. I'm really happy to be here. Student government has been a big part of my high school experience, so I'm excited to be working with you all on the real deal. A few things about me, I guess. Next year, I'm going to be doing an independent study, studying New York City government, so no better way than to be hands-on. I've lived in FIDI for my entire life, and want to make this place a better place, and I'm grateful to the work that the community board has done for however long it has existed. Catherine Hughes is the one who brought me here and has told me a lot about what has been done here. So I'm very excited to get to work with all of you. What will happen to the trees that aren't adopted, and why they aren't cared for now by the city?
Yeah, so I believe the reason why they aren't, it's just, I assume it's I assume this is the city rule. Not saying I agree with it. It's, in terms of resources, probably too costly to upkeep every single tree themselves.
How many middle schools have maker spaces? And I just wanted to say that the lower school and middle school I went to had a maker space, and that sort of had a big impact on me. I'm going to be an engineer now.
Yeah.
And I feel like if that weren't there, I would have lived a different life. And I just think it's important for little kids to get their hands on wood and metal. And so I'm wondering, because I looked a little bit did some research, and it looks like there aren't that many schools with maker spaces. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on getting more lower middle schools with maker spaces.
Yeah, maker spaces are actually a program that have been historically really nicely funded by.
Yeah. Okay, Joel.
Thanks.
Now it's take
All right.
away.
So I have
Richard.
a few air quality things I wanted to bring up, which is relevant to what we talked about.
Remember, we're concentrating on budget, capital budget items like to
Okay.
see.
Well,
Yeah,
let me
I mean,
start with the
yeah.
budget then.
Yeah.
Electric ferries, I know it would be a tall order, as we said, but I think it would be good to include it for the Staten Island Ferry because they are under our jurisdiction with Whitehall. So yeah, do you think that could be a budget request?
I don't see why not. I would certainly support it myself personally, but I'm not the only board member, so
We have done the.
So,
Okay.
next.
Right.
Anything else?
And then also besides electrifying, you can also do something called repowering, where essentially when the motors are replaced, you put an electric motor instead of having to buy an entirely new ferry. Air quality, I still think there should be incentives for private schools with electric school buses because I'm trying to get a transition at my school. And as to your question of where these air quality issues are coming from, a lot of it's from vehicles. Private schools cannot transition to electric school buses without these incentives because they aren't available for private schools. And so if you want to see improvements in air quality, I still believe that incentives for private schools.
Why not public schools?
Public schools have them, private schools don't.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Well,
that's not a budget request, that is a request for legislation for a tax change.
Okay.
Yeah.
As to Colin's point about Governor's Island, I think perhaps looking at small nuclear reactors for Governor's Island would be a good way to have a baseline for Manhattan.
I'm not gonna support myself
That has-
personally,
I can't support
you know.
That has-
Yeah, we need
That has
to
to be a
discussion
discussion.
now. So we
Okay.
can kind of get the idea.
That has to be a committee
Yes,
discussion.
so I would hold, I think it's great discussion, but I don't know that we have.
We
a
never
budget.
put down Pilgrim, but I can't.
Just don't know, I
Yeah.
personally would support that, but
Yeah,
other people, if
okay.
they vote for it, that's fine.
Yeah. Also, I'm curious if the board wants to bring into discussion electrifying or connecting street vendors to the grid. So if you want to bring this to discussion, we can talk about it next time. There are many benefits to connecting vendors to the grid. Right now, their only option really is to use natural gas generators, which there are a number of problems from this. air quality, it's bad for the health, they're in close proximity to carbon monoxide, pollutants, PM 2.5 particles generated from that. So it's bad for the vendors and the customers. Also, it's surprisingly bad for the environment because of nitrous oxides. And so instead of forcing them to use natural gas to generate electricity when we have the grid, I'm wondering if the committee would like to talk about that next time. And then if so, we could bring into discussion DP.
The last action that the city took on this subject was in 2013, when they linked up kiosks with the city grid.
They tried it for a little bit and then stopped.
Do you know why?
They stopped because they said it wasn't scalable because of the issue that Tammy brought up about kiosks wanting to move around.
Right.
So I think instead of mandating kiosks to, or carts to get new carts or whatever, just say that they can keep their current ways. It's just that there's the option of them plugging in to the grid. There are many different outlets, just based on the fact that there are lights everywhere. And so having a smart system where they could tap into that and be charged, I think would be much better for the environment and is something you should look at.
I think it's very thoughtful. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention, and go ahead and do a little more homework. You're unbelievable. This is a guy who's at school, as we all know. If you could tell me who you think we should contact DP now with our new district manager, we can make these connections happen a little more.
And then in December, we could bring in the relevant parties after that.
I hope so. Yes.
Presentation.
Yeah.
The absolute last thing I want to bring up was charcoal grills. During the food fairs that have been happening on Broadway, there's been a lot of charcoal grillers, and I've actually brought in a air sensor. Now, the levels that are acceptable for 24 hours from the National Ambient Air Quality Standard is to be below 35 micrograms for each cubic meter. It's been well below that typically, but there were a number of spots I measured that it was actually 999 micrograms per cubic meter, which is, here are just some photos, okay? So right by these grills, you've got customers there, you've got the,
I believe you.
grill sellers.
I believe
This is
you.
a number of locations.
I really believe you.
This is unacceptable.
Okay, what is your?
And you can see it far away too.
Okay, your suggestion.
Okay, so my suggestion is,
Propane?
Alice,
Okay, sorry.
my suggestion is to use electric grills,
No,
because,
doesn't taste good.
all right, well,
Okay, but wait, let's hear it. What do you?
electric grills
Yeah.
don't have that pollution and they're connected to the grid. It's just so much better for the health. Who said it doesn't taste as good?
I'm wondering where I can find energy emission data for New York State. Because the last emission data that was published for New York State is in 2021. A lot has changed. I mean, in 2021, 85% of the electricity in New York State was from fossil fuels. And in 2030, the plan is for that 70% of that to be renewable. So now that's 2023, I'm assuming a good bit of that has changed. So where can I find what percentage of the energy is produced by different sources for this year? That would be very helpful in my calculations for emission saving.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
I
from
think
going way
the
too fast.
progress, there's been a lot of progress in developing stuff. I think you are not.
Are there any no's?
Grayson, no.
Grayson, no. Are there any other no's?
I support this. I want to add in one whereas clause, and forgive me, very happy with adding that in. Where did I put it though? Here it is. Okay, so one whereas clause. A committee members recommended the designers consider the use of high-density plantings called mini forests, referred to as a Miyawaki forest, named after the ecologist Akira Miyawaki, which are to be highly beneficial for air quality issues and for flooding. And this basically is an idea that that center should have a lot of trees, small trees, and these are things that exist elsewhere. They're quite expensive. The designers are going to, again, look at this, but that was something that was discussed. I want to make sure it was represented.